Number 10. Blackheath. Blackheath is Samuel Smithers. Yep, in the reality of 1610, Plant-Man is instead a mutant. His powers are similar to that of Poison Ivy, allowing him to control plant life. Blackheath was one of the mutants who was kept in William Stryker's camps. While there, he ended up meeting and befriending Storm, and would be one of the few mutants left when Utopia came about.
Number 10. Goblin. Goblin was a pretty interesting and unique mutant who first appeared in the pages of Alpha Flight in issue 48 back in 1987. Goblin is the twin sister of Pathway, Laura Dean. Both siblings had been members of Alpha Flight in the past, as well as Beta Flight and Gamma Flight. While Goblin was in her mother's womb, they actually sensed early on that she was a mutant because of her unusually goblin-like appearance. Her parents wanted to abort her because of this, so her sister, Laura, who was in there with her instinctively, used her own mutant powers to teleport Goblin to Live World for her safety. For a long time, people actually thought Goblin was Pathway, and that Laura could actually just transform into Goblin. Eventually, Laura and Goblin, as well as everyone else, would learn the truth about their relation to one another, and their swapping of places throughout Laura's life. Goblin and Pathway have both not been seen for years since they left Department H. Goblin's mutation has resulted in her being super agile, possessing a unique appearance, and having a slight healing factor. It'd be cool to see, I think, both Goblin and Pathway return. They've been gone for so long. What are they up to? Where'd they go? Guess they're just roaming around in Canada? Number 9. Lady Mastermind. Lady Mastermind, aka Reagan Wingard, recently popped back up in the giant-sized Nightcrawler comics and was welcomed into the mutant nation of Krakoa. Some, however, may not know or appreciate her mutant history and background. Just who is Lady Mastermind? Well, she's the daughter of Jason Wingard, aka the original villain known as Mastermind. Her powers take after her father's, allowing her to create realistic illusions projected into her target's minds. While she also has an even lesser known suspected half-sister, Reagan's powers are often depicted as being the more powerful between the two, with it even being said that her abilities are even more stronger than her father's. Additionally, she is also fairly skilled in hand-to-hand combat, a skill set her father actually very much lacked. He was hilarious in a fight. He's like a rag doll. Sorry, Mastermind.
Number 9. Mach 2. Mach 2 is Nomi Bloom. She is kind of like the second coming of Magneto, but not as much of a villain. Or at least, she comes around in the end. And not inherently as powerful as Magneto was. She can basically affect and control magnetic fields. Later on, she would see a power boost which would enable her to have more control over objects containing metal. Mach 2 is also known for being a rival to Kitty in terms of her leadership over the surviving mutants of Utopia. People are gonna be like, what is Utopia? And I'm gonna be like, don't worry. We're getting to that much later, but it's coming. It's slowly you'll get little bits of information.
Number 9. Hijack. David Bond is a mutant that I personally quite enjoyed having in the comics, but who I don't think we've seen for a few years now, unless I completely missed him popping up on Krakoa somewhere. I don't think he's even been spotted there just yet, like not even in the background that I can recall. Though we have gotten a few technology-based mutants such as Sage, Trinary, and Warlock back as major characters, Hijack still remains somewhat forgotten to the sands of time. Where did he go? David Bond is a technopath who is able to command and control all kinds of vehicles, more often cars, but we've also seen him take control of the SHIELD helicarrier and Sentinels before besides. One of the helicarriers anyways. Number 8. Gentle. Gentle is a mutant with the abilities of super strength. I know, very hilarious considering his name. He can grant himself immediate muscle mass that basically allows him to change size and increase his strength when needed. It is yet unknown just how strong Gentle can make himself, and he is also known for being someone who could potentially even take on the Hulk, although he is more of a pacifist, hence his name. Gentle's real name is Nezno Abidemi. I hope I'm saying that right. Nezno Abidemi. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. It's a hard one to say. He was raised in Wakanda, but always felt like an outsider because his father was Russian. When his mutant abilities surfaced, it was actually Aurora Monroe, Storm, who was queen at the time in Wakanda, who encouraged him to be sent to the Xavier Institute so he could learn how to better control his powers. His vibranium tattoos are also meant to help him to control those powers. Also, vibranium tattoos are super cool, but I think they're also super painful to get, so maybe don't get them. You can't, because it's not a real substance, but still.
Number 8. ZORN. In the reality of Earth 1610, ZORN is actually ZORN, but is not the only version of ZORN. Wow, that sounded confusing. What I mean to say is that Zorn is his own person, Kuan Yin, but has a sibling who's also named Zorn, but with a Z. They were each given their powers as part of the Southeast Asian Republic's Super Soldier program. Zorn with an X is the one who you typically see clad in the color white. He is an amazingly powerful telepath and telekinetic. While both characters may have been introduced later and have been somewhat short-lived, they are both presented as being pretty powerful during their time in the comics. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up.
Number 8. COPYCAT. COPYCAT is someone whose real name you might recognize thanks to the Deadpool films. Vanessa Carlyle is her name, and while we got a version of her in the films who is Deadpool's love interest, which also happens in the comics, the cinematic version of Vanessa is pretty different from her comic book counterpart, who I might add also has now been perma-dead for years. COPYCAT in the comics is a mutant who has powers similar to Mystique's, except her powers can't be used as creatively as Mystique has used hers in the past. Remember when Mystique turned into paper? That's what I'm talking about. COPYCAT's powers allow her to impersonate and shapeshift into other humanoid beings, even copying their powers if they have any. At least we've seen that happen before. Her powers also make her impersonations so good that even those closest to the person would be fooled by them, in theory. With mutants able to return, it would be interesting to see how Deadpool and COPYCAT might interact in the future if she was to be resurrected. And she's a mutant, so could happen. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to learn more about some forgotten mutants, you want to reminisce and look back, be sure to let us know in the comments below. Give this video a like. Honestly, I have so many more mutants that I want to talk to you about, so it's a gift for you and a gift for me when you do that. Number 7. Egg. Fabio Medina might not seem like a powerful mutant based on his ability, but since his rise to the supremely important mutant group known as the Five on Krakoa, he can be considered one of the most important and powerful mutants around. When he combines his powers with that of the Five, he has control over life and death. Originally, the bouncy gold balls that he shot forth from his chest were believed to be nothing special, but it was later revealed that these balls were actually infertile eggs, which could be used in the process of resurrecting new mutants.
Number 7. Zorn. This is the sibling I was telling you about. Zorn with a Z or a Z is Shen Yin, the brother of Zorn with an X. His powers are much darker in nature. It's actually believed in the comics that Zorn and Zorn were sort of destined to bring a sense of balance to the world and mutant kind, symbolically sort of representing yin and yang, black and white. Zorn's powers are basically akin to a black hole. He emits a black hole energy and can use his powers to manipulate gravity. In the end, Zorn sacrifices himself when he realizes that he cannot win in the war against the children of tomorrow. In his death, he effectively becomes a black hole in retaliation.
Number 7. Forget-Me-Not. I don't think this list would be complete without Forget-Me-Not. This mutant's real name remains unknown, likely because of how his powers work. Forget-Me-Not's mutant power is that he is basically undetectable. No one, even people who have met and know him, is able to remember his existence. This makes him hard to even notice in a room, and Professor X himself had to actually set a mental alarm clock reminder like every little while in order to keep Forget-Me-Not in his mind. In the end, Forget-Me-Not was literally forgotten by all the mutants, and we haven't really seen or remembered him in a long time. He was spotted, however, momentarily in issue 9 of X Factor for those that were really keeping an eye out for him, but that was only in the corner and background of one single panel as far as I know. So I don't know if we can classify that as any major return for this character, who still seems to have gone unspotted by some and definitely seems to remain forgotten, sadly. Number 6. TEMPUS. Eva Bell is another member of the Five. She has actually appeared in less issues than Egg, if you can believe it, despite the fact that she has a pretty neat power set, and it's been neat since the beginning, which allows her to time travel. Tempus, as she used to be known, was able to control the passage of time in a specific pocket of space. She could also slow time in a current space that she also inhabited, either slowing time around her or creating time bubbles to manipulate time in that bubble, where she could speed it up or slow it down. The only challenge for her has been losing control of her powers, which can cause them to behave unpredictably. Still, controlling time is a pretty impressive and powerful ability to have.
Number 6. Colossus, a strong mutant on Earth 616 and in 1610. Initially, Pyotr Rasputin did not possess super strength as part of his power set, but was given a drug called Banshee to enhance his strength, as well as a job working for the Russian mafia. Eventually, he ended up joining the X-Men, though he would leave the team on a few separate occasions. He'd managed to hold off Scarlet Witch, save a submarine that not even the Ultimates were capable of saving, and defeat Proteus, David Xavier, Xavier's son, who threatened the entire world with violence, traveling around and targeting international landmarks the world over. Differences between Colossus of Earth 1610 and that of Earth 616 is that here he isn't inherently strong, as I said before, in his steel form, but needs Banshee to give him that boost. And he's also gay. He even for a time dates fellow mutant Northstar.
Number 6. Gentle. Gentle is a mutant from the nation of Wakanda. He made his first appearance in the 2004 series New X-Men in issue 23. Nesno Abidemi had it rough when he was younger, as his father was Russian and his mother Wakandan, which meant he grew up always being treated and feeling like an outsider. His power grants him superhuman strength, as his muscles can rapidly expand in size, making him super strong, but also at the cost of being in immense pain, both physically from the expansion and due to psychological trauma that he carries with him from his past. Because of this, Gentle is covered in unique and iconic vibranium tattoos, which help with the pain and also help him to better control his powers, preventing him from overexerting himself and potentially dying while using them. Gentle is a really cool character, and although you may have spotted him partying it up on Krakoa, he hasn't been given much to do as a key player in any of the current X books just yet. Number 5. Empath. Manuel de la Rocha made his first appearance in the original New Mutants series, where he was part of Emma Frost's team known as the Hellions. He's recently reappeared in the newest Hellion series from 2020 and proves just how powerful, but also how sadistic he can be. Empath's power is, you guessed it, empathy, and he can use this power to not only sense others' emotions, but also to control them, in effect manipulating others into doing whatever he wishes them to do. His influence can be subtle, such that someone might not even realize they're being manipulated by him, or it can be more forceful, turning his victims into complete husks of their former selves and bending them fully to his will.
Number 5. Jimmy Hudson. Jimmy Hudson is the son of Wolverine. He also inherited his claws, superior senses, and regenerative healing factor. Like his dad, it's believed that his powers may actually be based in survival, as opposed to just healing, with James being seen as adapting to survive injury or harsh environments as needed. Unlike Wolverine, Jimmy can choose to coat his claws in metal, as this is actually part of his power set, and it's believed that only his claws end up being coated, not the rest of his skeleton. Jimmy was a crucial member of the mutant resistance, which fought against Sentinel and militia attacks that threatened to wipe out the mutants. In the end, the mutants were victorious and were given a choice of going to live on their own piece of land in Utah or taking a cure for their mutation. Jimmy was one of the few mutants who decided to keep his powers.
Number 5. Bandera. As someone who is currently reading the original run of Wolverine, I can't in good conscience create this list and leave out La Bandera, a favorite supporting character and mutant of mine from that series. La Bandera made her first appearance in the 80s Wolverine series in issue 19. Bandera went on an adventure with Wolverine where she helped him put a stop to the tyrannical and militaristic rule of President Caridid in Tierra Verde, also helping Wolverine to defeat an ancient monster that Caridid had unleashed known as Spore. In the end, she stayed behind in Tierra Verde to help the people there transition to a more democratic form of government. She wouldn't even get to remain alive for a decade in the comics, being killed off in the mid-90s in an issue of Captain America. The island of Krakoa and the planet Mars are now where mutants call home, and resurrection protocols are in place to bring all fallen and lost mutants back, but we still haven't spotted Bandera yet for some reason. Where's she at, the 5? Bring her back! I'm looking at you, all 5 of you mutants that are resurrecting everyone. Get to it. Chop chop. Number 4. Mimic. Mimic started off as an iconic mutant villain when he first appeared in X-Men issue 19. He has resurfaced in the comics on more than one occasion and was mentioned, but we haven't seen what he's been up to lately on the mutant island nation Krakoa. All that we know is he's probably there doing something? Mimic's powers allow him to copy the powers and skill set and level of those within a certain vicinity to him. He was like the original Rogue or Hope Summers when it came to his mimicry abilities. Over time, some of the abilities he's taken, those of the original X-Men, set at their power levels that they were at originally, became permanent for him, and he no longer needed them nearby to use said powers. So he has those ones permanently. but it should be noted that they're capped at original level. Number 3. CALIBAN. CALIBAN made a brief appearance in the 2019 X-Force series in issue number 1, but only so that he could basically get shot in the chest. Yeah. Otherwise, although CALIBAN has been one of the main Morlocks that we've come to know in the comics over the years, he hasn't really made a lasting impression in any of the current X books, more acting as a victim in the brutal Krakoan massacre that rounded out the end of that first issue. CALIBAN has never really been depicted as a super powerful mutant, but he is an important character in terms of the story and the history of the X-Men. His mutant powers allow him to sense and detect other mutants, and other than that, his powers are conditional, really only kicking in when his life is threatened, granting him super strength and the ability to absorb and multiply the fear of others. Number 2. LAYLA Miller. LAYLA Miller is the wife of Jamie Madrox, Multiple Man, who we've seen quite a bit throughout Krakoa and the X-Books, as Jamie's dupes generally are used to undertake various massive work efforts on the island, and off the island. Whether he's aiding in Krakoan medicine and drug production, or helping to sew and create everyone's Hellfire Gala outfits at the behest of Jumbo Carnation. But while Jamie has been everywhere, LAYLA has been almost nowhere in sight. We do get a brief glimpse of her more recently through a computer screen, and then throughout a couple in-person panels in X-Corp issue number 3, where we learn that Jamie's and Layla's son, Davey, is about ready to take his first steps. Yay! Layla wants Jamie to leave the lab to come home and witness those steps, but Jamie responds that the launch he's supervising is too important and he can't leave. Layla frustratedly hangs up on him, and Jamie later sends a dupe in his place, planning to later absorb the dupe and therefore acquire the memories of being there with his son. But other than these few moments, Layla has been MIA. I know she's busy with Davey, but it would be really cool to see her in action, as she's a really cool mutant and a really cool character. So bring Layla back, please. Number 1. Destiny. Destiny is probably one of the most anticipated mutants to return. She has not been forgotten by her wife and lover Mystique or by readers, but pretty much everyone else on Krakoa seems to be interested in forgetting about her. But still, using her journals to likely try and figure out the future to come based on her prophecies. At least I assume that's what Moira McTaggart is doing with those journals. I especially want Destiny to come back because I just want to see her and Mystique reunited, and because I kind of want Mystique to sow chaos and destruction and just generally raise hell in order to get Destiny returned. And then I want to see that payoff, like I want to see it actually come to fruition. Just sounds like a cool story. We'll likely be getting something to that effect in Inferno, but only time will tell if Destiny will return or not, before, during, or afterwards. She might not return at all, because Madeline Pryor's also coming back, so Inferno could be about that too. Number 4. Vulcan. Vulcan is one of the most powerful mutants around, being an Omega level mutant, skilled in energy manipulation and absorption. Yet he is somehow the lesser known of all the Summers, despite his insane power levels. He has also demonstrated the ability to absorb his opponent's powers as well, and use them for himself on the rare occasion. Vulcan is the youngest Summers brother, also known as Gabe Summers, and we only learned of his existence in 2006 when he first appeared in the comic X-Men Deadly Genesis issue number 1, and yet he is considered the most powerful of these 3.
Number 4. Storm. Initially in the Ultimate Universe, Storm didn't have great control over her powers, and mostly got by stealing cars, but after the X-Men took her in, she learned how to control and even master her powers, allowing her to become one of the most fearsome and powerful mutants around. Ultimate Storm is so cool. Storm is so fast, she has been shown to be able to catch people who are falling in midair, dodge bullets, and even keep pace with a plane. Impressive considering planes on average travel at speeds over 540 miles per hour or over 870 kilometers per hour. That's fast. She's also likely not someone you want to tangle with, as even when she takes hits in battles, she tends to keep fighting or instinctively strike back. Using her lightning storm and weather control powers, she's also managed to defeat multiple opponents with one single attack, whether they be Sentinel opponents or human opponents, and in some cases, even killing them. I think at one point she kills like 11 people at once, and it's just like, okay. Don't mess with Storm. Got it. I mean, I already knew that before from her 616, but now I really know.
Number 3. Orphan Maker and Nanny. Orphan Maker still remains a relatively mysterious character, though is also one who still proves to be a force to be reckoned with in combat. Orphan Maker is also known as Peter and was part of a plot of Mr. Sinister's originally. However, when Mr. Sinister decided that Peter could not be controlled, he decided to eliminate him. Nanny, an insane cyborg, however, saved him, believing it was her responsibility to look after orphan mutant children and protect them. Although I will say she's got a weird way of going about it. While insane, Nanny was also once a scientist and remains quite intelligent. She actually outfitted Orphan Maker with weapons and a powerful suit to help her in her task. While it's still unclear as to what Orphan Maker's true mutant powers are, and while he seems to still have the mind of a child, probably due to Nanny's manipulation, his suit and weapons make him a formidable foe in combat, and he often uses pixie dust in battle to help Nanny influence and control the minds of their opponents, as she herself is a telepath, but a weak one, so she needs a little bit of help. Needs a little bit of pixie dust. Even during a fight with Cyclops, Scott's optic blasts were unable to harm Orphan Maker while he was in his armor, with Scott's blast simply reflecting off the armor, causing more harm than help, really.
Number 3. Jean Grey. In Ultimates, it almost seems there is nothing Jean can't do. Before she joined the X-Men, she was in a mental institution as the manifestation of her powers made her seem insane. However, Professor X would save Jean and recruit her on his X-Men team, with her being the second member. In the Ultimate Universe, we have seen Jean become possessed by what she thought was a cosmic entity referred to as the Phoenix God, and almost lose control and her sanity. The biggest problem with Jean is similar to that of her Earth 616 counterpart. Immense power threatens to basically break her mind, or at least take over her sense of sanity. In the comics, Jean is not only a skilled telepath and was even able to read Wolverine's mind, something Professor X believed wasn't even possible, but she also happens to, weirdly enough, be a skilled doctor and surgeon as well, although I'm pretty sure she doesn't have any medical license. Say what? Jean was even shown to be capable of connecting and tapping into the multiverse to reach out and see various versions of herself. Basically, she can do everything, because being a telepath is crazy powerful.
Number 2. TRINARY. Considering the modern age we live in, TRINARY is a pretty powerful mutant. Her abilities allow her to control all tech that is within her line of sight. She has used these powers to move massive sums of money digitally and to manipulate and control Sentinel tech. Currently on Krakoa, TRINARY is one of the few technopathic mutants trusted with the important project known as Sleeping Giant, wherein mutants monitor for upcoming advancement in Sentinel technology, such as Nimrods or the creation of a mother mold, so that they can ideally put a stop to its development. Project Sleeping Giant were instrumental in helping the X-Men to destroy a mother mold that Orchis was creating before it went online.
Number 2. Magneto. Obviously, one of the most powerful mutants out there has to be Magneto, not just for the powers of magnetism that he wields, but also just for his influence. Magneto was the mastermind behind Ultimatum. I suppose I should use the term mastermind lightly there, as Ultimatum in general is not really seen very favorably in most fans' eyes. I admit it was controversial and caused a lot of perhaps needless death. In fact, I would say it was needless death. But you have to acknowledge just how much of a threat it painted Magneto out to be. Well, I'm not sure about Magneto basically committing genocide as a victim of one himself. You have to admit that this made him one of the most fearsome characters in all of the Ultimate Universe. And for Magneto, there is power in fear, even though oddly enough, it is usually fear that tends to power the hate that he often stands up against.
Number 1. Bailey Hoskins. Now, you might think I'm joking here if you happen to know the obscure Bailey Hoskins, but I'm really not. Bailey appeared in his own miniseries titled X-Men, Worst X-Man Ever. He was known for being the worst X-Man ever because his ability only allowed him to do one thing: explode. But he didn't have any regeneration powers, so he basically was a mutant who could never use his powers, otherwise he'd kill himself. It's kind of a one-hit wonder. So, how is that powerful? Well, it's also implied in the series that when he does choose to sacrifice himself and blow up the villain of the story, that he makes it possible for Earth 616 to come into existence. So without him, we wouldn't have the main Marvel continuity that we know and love today, potentially. If saving the entire continuity from becoming a dystopian future isn't powerful, then I don't know what is.
Number 1. Kitty Pryde. One of the most powerful characters as a leader especially. She ends up becoming the ruler of the mutant tent nation that the mutants dub Utopia. This is a portion of land in Utah that the mutants who choose not to accept the cure are given. In fact, all those who refuse to take the cure are forced to live there. Kitty ends up fighting a war against Jean Grey in the Ultimate Universe as well, because Jean wants Kitty to join the mutant nation that she was put in charge of ruling after the death of Zorn with an X, Xian. But Kitty refuses to bring their people together. Kitty is such a good leader, she even steps down from her title as the leader of Utopia to help ease the target on her own people's backs because of her and Jean's conflict. Kitty and Utopia would end up winning that war, and Kitty would also play a crucial role in defeating Galactus as well. Also, I gotta say, that whole World War X thing, it was pretty weird. It was pretty weird, friends.